right, good morning, everyone. So we are ready to go ahead and get started. If you are walking in, go ahead and move up to the front. I have been asked to say by Dr. Q that if you sit near the back, he will ask you brain surgery questions, so just be prepared for that. Okay, so ladies and gentlemen, we are so thrilled to bring this event back after a 2-year hiatus. So welcome back to Wynne Chapel and welcome back to the Posey Leadership Award event. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Dr. Martinella Dryberg. I'm the Executive Director of the Posey Leadership Institute here at Austin College, and it is my pleasure to welcome you this morning. Our program is going to begin in a moment. I have a few housekeeping details that I have been asked to share. First of all, thanks everyone again for showing up. Second, please silence all of your electronics. That includes cell phones, tablets, and laptops that you may have, especially for you students who are taking notes here today. And that is about it. If you will turn your attention here to the front, I am happy to welcome the 16th president of Austin College, President Stephen O'Day.
Dr. Dryberg, thank you so much. I'm just taking this all in for a moment. It is wonderful to have this back on our campus and to see so many people here. So let me add my welcome to this year's Convocation honoring the 2022 Posey Leadership Award recipient, Dr. Alfredo Quiñones-Hinojosa. Since 2006, the Austin College Leadership Award has recognized individuals who have made a significant impact on the world through servant leadership. The award has brought these talented leaders to campus to tell their stories so that our students and the greater college community could benefit from their lessons in leadership and better form their own leadership journeys. Sally and Lee Posey, generous benefactors to young people in North Texas, joined Austin College to endow the Posey Leadership Institute and this leadership award. Upon Lee's death in 2008, the Posey name was added to the award to further recognize Lee Posey's own life of service. In the intervening years, the Austin College community has been honored to welcome to campus as the recipients of the Posey Leadership Award, an amazing community of individuals who are working in a variety of arenas to make our world a better place. The pandemic forced us to put this event on hold for a couple years, and during that time, we found new models of communication. Yes, I'm using the Z word. Zoom. As we began to organize this year's event, we realized we could take advantage of virtual meeting technology, the Z word, to bring our Posey Leadership Award honoree to campus for more than just one day. This leader in residence model has allowed students, faculty, and staff to have real-time conversations with Dr. Q in a series of virtual sessions throughout the entire academic year. We are so grateful to you, Dr. Q, for your generosity of time and spirit in meeting with our students and truly being an open book to them. Our students have taken great inspiration from all the sessions, and their feedback has been tremendous. And I'm quite confident that Dr. Q is going to be equally inspiring to all of you today. And so now I call one of our students who helped coordinate the virtual sessions this year to come to the podium so that he can in turn introduce Dr. Q. Jacob Moreno is a senior from Euless, Texas, majoring in communications with a minor in leadership. Next year, he plans on continuing his education, pursuing a master's degree in strategic communications and innovation through Texas Tech University. Now, this program is actually offered right here on our campus, so we will have the joy of having Jacob around for a little bit longer, and we're very much looking forward to that. Jacob is highly involved on campus, serving as the president of CAB, the Campus Activities Board, a member of the First Year Experience Task Force, a fellow in the Posey Leadership Institute, and a 4-year member of the Institutional Marketing and Communications Professional Internship Program. And it is in that role that Jacob joins us today as the student lead of the Posey Leadership Award planning team. Please join me in welcoming Jacob Moreno.
Thank you, President O'Day. You know, if President O'Day is introducing you, you've done something right. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our lovely campus and home. I stand here today as a student intern lead for the new Austin College Posey Leadership Board Leader in Residence series. It is my pleasure to introduce to you our first Leader in Residence, Dr. Alfredo Quiñones-Hinojosa, or Dr. Q as we may know him. You're welcome to read a short biography in your program. However, I would like to mention a few highlights of Dr. Q's life as a professor, researcher, neurosurgeon, author, and icon for first-generation students. From his initial migration to the US in 1987, at the age of 19, Dr. Q began working on a farm outside of Fresno, California. At this time, he had no clue that his experience picking tomatoes would be translated into an operating room and stage today. After making enough money for English classes, Dr. Q started his college career at San Joaquin Delta College. Dr. Q went on to earn his bachelor's degree in psychology with the highest of honors at the University of California, Berkeley, and then his medical degree from Harvard Medical School, where he also graduated with honors. He completed his residency in neurosurgery at the University of California, San Francisco. He also became a US citizen during this time. Currently, Dr. Q serves at the Mayo Clinic in Florida and runs an NIH-funded research lab focused on finding a cure for brain cancer. He also researches the use of new technology within the neurology field, such as nanotechnology and radio beam focal therapy. Dr. Q is also the president and co-founder of the nonprofit Mission Brain. A quote from Dr. Q that resonates with me is one that reads, "I'm just a regular guy. I work hard and I went to school." Dr. Q's voice is one that speaks not only to the medical field and brain cancer research. His voice is one of first-generation Americans making their dreams come true. His voice is one that speaks to people becoming the leaders of the future. His conversations with students go to show his dedication to the youth, to us, and to the impact we can have on this world. Through our student sessions, we've heard from Dr. Q on these topics and more. He has truly inspired us to believe that with hard work and dedication, we can achieve anything we put our minds to. Dr. Q, on behalf of the students of Austin College, thank you. Now please join me in welcoming to the stage our 2022 Austin College Posey Leadership Award recipient, Dr. Alfredo Quiñones-Hinojosa.
My fellow, hey, stay right here. We got to do a selfie. You know, I'm trying to get more active in social media. Let me see. Hold on a second. There you go, everybody. Thank you. Oh my goodness. And now I'm also doing a video, just in case. You know, it's amazing to me. First of all, President O'Day, thank you. What a great honor for me. And Jacob, my fellow, thank you for your kind words and your introduction. I am extraordinarily honored and humbled to be here with all of you. I hope that over the next 30 minutes or so, I can share with you a little bit of my journey, not only as someone who came to this country a number of years ago as an immigrant, subsequently as a student, eventually as a medical student, and now as a surgeon, scientist, and doing some of the other things that I do on the side to try to keep myself busy, not in trouble. You know, so I'll try to share that with you. And so I prepared some of those remarks thanks to Lynn, who had been asking me for a couple of, where are you, Lynn? Where is she? There you go. She's been asking me for a couple of weeks, and then I think about 2 weeks ago, I sent her like 100 slides, and she says, we only have you scheduled for like 30 minutes or something like that. I said, don't worry, I just don't know what I'm going to say until the morning of, you know, and that's exactly what happened. So I thought I'd share with you a little bit of my experience, you know, and I titled this talk Under the Stars for a particular reason. It links me back into what I was doing when I was a little boy growing up in Mexico and looking up, to the sky and seeing the stars in my small little town in Mexicali, outside of Mexicali, Mexico. But also because I actually work with a particular type of cell in the brain that is called an astrocyte. So that is a star, that is the Latin word for star. And that astrocyte, we believe, is also related to brain cancer, which is the story and the work that I do in my laboratory. But I wanted to give specifically for the students a little bit of that taste of what it's like to fail, because I do believe that in my own life, I have failed more times than I have succeeded, undoubtedly. But somewhere along the line, you have to figure out how to find that balance between success and failure. So I hope that with the remarks that I do with you guys today, I get to share a little bit of that. That is some of the stuff in social media that a lot of my students have helped me, and they push me outside of my area of expertise. And you'll see I have Instagram, Twitter, the same handle for Instagram and Twitter. I found out from Jacob yesterday that I am certified. Is that what is it called? Verified, not certified. Certified is different. Verified, because he's like, Dr. Q, you got to let people know that you got a little blue check or something like that. So I'm learning. I have no idea how that happened, but you can see actually that when you get to learn from the students, it's an amazing experience, an amazing journey. I'll tell you a little bit about my work in the laboratory. I'll tell you a little bit about the work in a foundation that we started many, many years ago when I finished my residency in 2005 and really became a 501c3 around 2011 after a very amazing experience that I had where a mentor crossed the line between a mentor and a tormentor, which is something that I do all the time. And that's actually probably one of my strengths. I do it very well. That's one of the few things that I do well, crossing that line between a mentor and tormentor. So I'll share with you guys, I have no doubt that so many, I borrow the words of Wayne Gretzky, who is a very famous hockey player. One of my faculty members was in the original team of the Michigan Wolverines that in 1998 got the last NCAA championship. And they recently, by the way, last week they were playing in Boston, his team. So he was being interviewed, and he is an amazing brain surgeon, Chris Fox, Dr. Fox. And he and I were talking about it, and he just shared this quote with me about Wayne Gretzky saying that he had missed 100% of the shots he didn't take. And that's exactly my life. I feel like in my own life, I missed anything that I didn't try, I missed it. And that is probably one of those things that I never wanted to live my life with, those type of regrets. So I'll share with you a little bit of that. When you think about experiences, not only as a brain surgeon, but as a physician, as a scientist, I think about the beauty of the work that I do. And that's not because it's beautiful what I do, it's because to me, what is beautiful is that a patient is willing to put his or her life or the life of one of their loved ones in the hands of a complete stranger. And I am a stranger at the end of the day, to many people. But yet, they have that courage, they have that love for themselves that they're willing to put their life in the hands of someone else. Luckily, people like me, one of the secrets in life is that I have learned how to surround myself by people who are much brighter than I am. And at the end, you'll see the picture of the lab that left in 2016, Johns Hopkins, to come to the Mayo Clinic. About 30 scientists and about 4 faculty members who all of a sudden picked up everything, their life, their pets, and they came to Mayo, Florida, including one of their pets. Her name was Bella, who just unfortunately also passed away 2 days ago. That's Dr. Guerrero's pet, actually, a beautiful dog. So we are a family. I believe that when you surround yourself by a family, you can do amazing things. In the operating room, I feel more comfortable. Right now, my lips are dry. I am extraordinarily nervous. My heart is palpitating. You may not think I'm nervous, but I get more nervous of being here in front of all of you guys than being in the operating room. Because in the operating room, what I do is familiar. I love the sound of the machines. I love the sound of the instrument touching each other. I love the sound of the ventilation. I love the sound of the doors opening, the scalpel touching the skin. And I love the smells of the operating room. That's where I feel comfortable. And in the middle of that chaos that many people think to be chaotic, I find a certain amount of beauty. I'm writing the second book to follow up the first book. The second book, the tentative title is The Deepest Cut, because I get to touch also about the price of the things that I have done and the sacrifices that I had to do, with my own family when I left my country at age 19, just as a kid. But most people don't realize that I actually had left at age 14 for the first time. And I remember, I left Mexicali, hopped the fence, got in the back of a pickup truck, put some tarps, and I landed in the fields of California at age 14. And I was begging for a job because things at home were very, very tough. I was just a kid. I left Mexicali weighing 120 pounds. 3 months later, I came back home, I remember, with about $1,000 and one of my, by the way, I do wear cowboy boots. I had cowboy boots. And I hid the money right there and I gave it to my parents. We were so poor. And I was 94 pounds. At that stage when you're supposed to be, and I remember my mother crying when she saw me. And I never understood, but now as a parent, I can understand those sacrifices that they did themselves. But I do talk about those things. I learned very early on in my life that you have to dream. You have to dream big. If you're not scared of your dreams, that means that your dreams are just simply not big enough. Those dreams have to be so big and so powerful that you must be afraid of them. And Cesar Chavez, who, by the way, last week I got the first award in the city of Jacksonville. They created the Cesar Chavez Day, who was an amazing migrant farm worker and someone who I have learned some of his philosophy. He said once that to make a great dream come true, you have to have that capacity to dream. And imagine this, when you have so many neurons, so many synapses in your brain, and I'll tell you a little bit about that in a few minutes. It's like that capacity is amazing, but you also have to persevere. You have to be perseverant. You have to have persistence, and you have to get back to work. At the end of the day, you have to execute. A dream is no good if you don't execute them, undoubtedly. So you have to execute your dreams, and you have to never give up. Life is going to put you down on your knees. I learned this from Rocky Balboa. It's going to put you down on your knees, and you're going to go down, and the greatest challenge is that you have to get up. You got to get another beating, and you got to keep moving forward. Always forward. And that's something that a lot of people make fun of me because I always say onward, because in reality, that is being part of my life and my philosophy, of course. But life wasn't always like this fancy with this little, yesterday I was showing the people, so I got these right here, not all the time. So these are new. These are not square packets. These are like circles. So I got a few of them from one of my neighbors, actually, who knows that I love to wear the square packs. But life wasn't always like this, all right? This is the place, where I have the fence in 1983 and again in 1987, all right? And if you look at the series, the Surgeons Cut on Netflix, the new fence is much taller and much more challenging. And I was on it, a few years back, and my son David was with me, and I was looking at it. And then I got back in the car, and my son said, "Dad, you think you can jump it?" And I said, "I don't think so." And then he looked at me, he goes, "Dad, you're probably more physically fit now than you were back then, and yet, you're letting, your own education and the things that you have accomplished, limit your dreams." And he taught me, once again, your kids have a way of teaching you lessons. I'll share another ones, and they bring you down in terra firma. And the reality, but I ended up, and the biggest risk I always tell the students that you have in life is just simply not taking one. And of course, life will take you down through some amazing, episodes. And for me, battling life and death is not uncommon. I happen to relate to a lot of my patients because of that peculiar reason. On April 14th, 1989, I myself had an episode in which I was battling for my life. And that was actually written in one of the articles in the New England Journal of Medicine. But I tell you what I think it's amazing and allows me to relate to my patients. It's simply the fact that many people, because my life was saved, by a miracle, because I was at the bottom of this tank fighting for my life, basically dying. And my father tried to get in, and my father was 44 years old at that time. all right? And he was not, they didn't allow him to get in because they told him he was too old to go in and try to save me. I can imagine the frustration. They had to physically restrain him. And my brother-in-law, who was about a year older at that time, went in not once but twice to save my life, and I'm sure that that's something that, remained. And I actually, last year, he loves writing as well. So I gave him a pen with the inscription April 14, 1989. For the first time, I beginning to reflect in my own life how many times some of us have been able to be blessed with the gifts that we have been given. Same gifts that I'm given every single day when I am allowed to go into the operating room and touch a patient's brain, touch a life. And I always think about that process of healing and being so sacred and so amazing. And it fills me with hope and happiness to be able to do that. And I say that I always tell people the journey began, as I came to the United States. I'll tell you a little bit. I don't presume that you know who I am and what I do, but I did. Went from migrant farm worker, eventually to community college, subsequently used to Berkeley in 1991, graduated with honors in 94, went to Harvard Medical School from 94 to 99, did a Howard Hughes Medical Institute, gave the commencement speech, went out to the University of California, San Francisco. That was considered the #1 program in neurosurgery. Still today is considered the #1 program. Then that ended up graduating in 2005. Started my laboratory. Look at that picture of my lab. Amazingly diverse. Every single one of those students is much brighter than I am. I promise you, without any hesitation. The only thing probably I have to contribute is that sometimes I feel like I'm a synapse. I can put neurons together. That's what I do. I connect neurons. That's what I am. I am a transporter of ideas from one neuron to another. And somehow I'm able to make all those connections. And then I finally, in 2016, after I had declined 3 jobs at the Mayo Clinic in Rochester, I was telling Stan and Linda last night, I said, if I go to Mayo Rochester, I'd probably be the first Mexican popsicle in the Midwest. I was like, I'm a man of the 80s. I love the weather in the 80s. I love music from the 80s. And I'm comfortable in the 80s. So imagine, minus 80 was not necessarily, there are days that Minnesota is colder than Mars. So I said, I'm not going, but when Mayo, Florida called, I saw the place and I ended up being there, and that's where I am today. But that, of course, events in your life get you through this metamorphosis. For me, April 14, 1989, almost losing my life. Then by 1999, just not too long after that, I was graduating from medical school, walking right here with my daughter, Gabriela, who's now almost 23. And we imagine the amazing experience that I had, the joy of seeing your family there with you. In my case, it was my parents who'd never been at Harvard. They didn't understand why was I sitting in the front. My daughter was all excited, Gabby, because I was giving my talk and she was applauding. She thought that everything revolves around her. And you'll see your kids, they still believe that. And I congratulate them for doing that. But, of course, we ended up going through that metamorphosis. And I think about the butterfly for two reasons. This is actually a piece of work that Gabby, who's an artist, did for me. And it's yellow in the middle for a reason, because yellow is the color that I have chosen over the years to run with a lot of my patients. I try to do at least a race or 2 a year. And it was a lesson that I learned from John Petrovic. And I can mention his name because he was on the news a number of years ago. Young man, lawyer. He was devastated. I did 3 awake craniotomies, fighting glioblastoma multiforme. Unfortunately, eventually he left this world. And he had a tumor called the butterfly glioma. And that butterfly glioma can't get any more dangerous. That means it's in both sides of the brain. And when you look at the MRI, you can see that. And it's devastating. It's extraordinarily complex. And I think that when I look at this, I asked my daughter to create this with the monarch butterfly. In the middle, we put yellow, because it symbolizes not only the work that I do, but also the fact that we all go through these metamorphoses, these changes in life that allow us to welcome new changes, new adventures, So as I went through my journey, when I was at University of California, San Francisco as a resident, I began to conceive, how can I one day be part of something much bigger than each of us? And I came up with this diagram. This diagram is actually almost 20 years old, and it hasn't changed. The principles are the same. The patient is at the center, which is the operating room, and we do a lot of work in understanding how cells in the brain move. It's that simple. And we study all the way from a small little molecule to big themes, all right? And that's it. And I go all the way from education to translational to clinical trials to stuff in the laboratory that is very, very basic, but they're all related. That's what I was telling, that I'm a synapse. I make connections between all these things. And of course, over the years, we lost track of all the different covers, papers, books that we have published. Because I'm not alone. Once again, when you surround yourself by talent, it will be amazing what they can do, what we can do together. But in between a lot of these successes, of course, there is a lot of failure. So how to achieve that balance? I always believe that success is important. There's no question about it. Success will allow you to build confidence, and we all need that as part of our life. But failure is equally important, in my opinion, because failure allows you to build character. But how do you build wisdom? Is that you have to somehow enjoy both the successes and the failure that will then allow you to build that wisdom that we all need in order to keep moving in life and somehow, to be able to help someone else. The other day, I think it was Lynn who pointed out, I didn't even know that I was in the news in NBC with Lester Holt, actually. It was a couple of weeks ago, right? The American Dream or something. Yes, it was. So anyways, I'm getting a text message, and then I was getting text messages from a lot of my colleagues. And they asked me, and that I watched it eventually because it was on the internet. They asked me what was the American Dream. I didn't remember what I asked because I don't know when that interview was done. I lose track of a lot of things. So those are not as important as the fact that I got to take care of patients. And I said that for me, the American dream was to be able to help someone else. It's that simple. To be able to touch a life and to be able to have that life touch you back. Because I got to tell you, a lot of my patients, they thank me for what I do, and I always, in my mind, I feel guilty, because I do believe that I benefit more from what they do for me than they benefit from my knowledge, because at the end, I'm not alone. In the operating room, in my laboratory, I'm surrounded by a lot of people. And I think that over the years, you begin to understand that to me is the wisdom that we all look for. Not only success, but also failure and trying to bring it all together, The passion that you have to find a passion. Whatever you do. Some of the students have come to me and they said, I was thinking about medical school. I'm not sure today. I'm thinking about this. I'm not sure. I said, it doesn't matter what you do. Whatever you do, if you do it with passion, and this is something that I learned from my grandfather when I was a little kid. He used to tell me, son, whatever you do, if you want to be a carpenter, strive to be the best carpenter in the world. And one day you're going to be making pieces of furniture, desks on which presidents are going to be signing major documents that will change the world. And I believe that. Doesn't matter what you do. You find your passion, you are going to do it at an extraordinarily high level. So for me, I found very early on in my life that I had a passion for giving patients hope. Patients that are battling with cancer. And there's no other cancer currently that is more devastating and more dangerous than brain cancer. Not only the primary brain cancer, but cancer that comes from other parts of the brain, from the skin, from the kidneys, from the lungs, from the breast, up to the brain. Once it gets to the brain, it is very difficult for drugs to get up there. So I knew that very early on in my career. So I found, because of a patient experience, and I write in my book, J.O., I remember his name, I remember his face, I remember his family as if it was yesterday. I met him in 2001, and I saw how brain cancer not only destroyed him as a human, but it took away the hope of their family. And J.O. was me just 15 years prior. He was a student at UC Berkeley, an immigrant family, and I saw how this disease devastated him and how it just took away the soul of their family. And I said, I want to be part of this. And I came over the years to find out and publish a lot of papers and realize that cancer in general is devastating. You can see the number of people who are dying, and the world, and the number that is projected to continue to die in the world. And I'm talking about people who died at a very young age. So I said, I want to be part of this. I want to give people hope. And for many years, I was lost. I thought that my role was to find a cure for cancer. And it was John Petrovic who taught me the lesson that my role was to give patients hope. As simple as that. Whether it's in the operating room through the techniques that we have developed, whether it's in the laboratory, most recently through the foundation, but I had missed this message for so many years. And yet, here I am, and what you're seeing right now is the picture of a cell, the movie of a cell migrating. That's actually something that we had to invent to be able to dissect cancer. So I asked a very specific, not only philosophical, but also scientific question. For me to understand how a cell moves, I needed to break it down in processes. And before we invented nanopatterns, before we invented microtubes to see cells migrating, cells used to just be put on a glass, and they'd be going everywhere, and you just could not dissect the way in which they were moving. So I teach my young students always think about the basics. And whatever the problem is, break it down and take it one step at a time. And that's what we ended up doing. And over the years, we ended up getting a lot of support from a lot of resources, and of course, continue to work on this right here. And Nick, for whatever reason, this is not advancing right now. Would you mind getting me to the next one? I don't know if I got to start. There you go. It worked. Thank you. So here you see, for the first time, this is actually a paper that we have submitted right now. Paola Mead, one of my fellows in my lab, started back in 2004, right when I was about to finish, residency. We knew that the brain, by the way, for many years, we were taught that the brain, our adult brain, had no ability to recover function, to regenerate. And it goes back to the Nobel laureate in 1906, Santiago Ramón y Cajal, who said that the brain didn't have this ability. But for the first time in 2004, that was the cover of this Nature magazine, and it was actually a 3D reconstruction that I personally did with Nader, one of the co-authors of the paper, Mitzberg, who was the chair of the department, and we created this model, this three-dimensional reconstruction, but also we were collecting tissue from the operating room, tissue that otherwise would be discarded. And since I grew up very poor, I never wasted anything, and that's how my lab started. So I started collecting this tissue instead of letting it go to biomedical waste, and then I convinced my colleagues, scientists, to give us federal support to study. And the movie that you're seeing right now, is for the first time, these are human cells migrating in the human brain. Just think about this, human cells migrating in the human brain. We now know that they go around blood vessels, that they are talking to each other. This is why we haven't been able to break the code. So we start working very diligently on this, and that's what you see. This movie hasn't even been published yet, but I am so excited to see this work from a lot of young people. This experiment, I conceived it in my brain in 2003, and it was done in 2018. 15 years it took to accomplish. But that's what science is, and you have to be patient. Now, we were talking about, Stan wrote a paper, 1985, you were telling me about this. And then it was not until last year you began to put two and two together for some of the work that he does. It's amazing. So you have to let things mature. You have to be patient sometimes. That doesn't mean that you don't do anything to act upon your dreams. You can still working on it. So I kept working on it. We began to understand how cells migrate, not only brain cancer cells. Then I realized one day by mistake, that there are stem cells in fat. So we began to use fat to fight brain cancer. But we needed to figure out how we're going to engineer these fat cells, we call them fat stem cells, adipose tissue stem cells. And same, I partnered with someone who is completely outside of my field and way out of my league, Dr. Jordan Green, who had just finished his PhD. He was a chemist. And we figure out there are nanoparticles that we can use that they can tag in not only to brain cancer, but also to stem cells from fat, and we can engineer them to do something that is miraculous. And that has led to now a couple of clinical trials that we have in our laboratory working on this area of the stem cell and brain cancer, obviously. And Nick, for whatever reason, this got stuck again. Would you mind advancing me? That's good that we have a good connection. There you go. I think one more. Let's see if we can go there you go. So this is actually a handmade horse. It's a Trojan horse that one of my first graduate students gave me. And Ana Carrano took this picture, which I think is absolutely beautiful in the lab. She is one of the scientist faculty, and she is also a photographer. And this is actually, a student made this for me. It's a Trojan horse. So we use these stem cells from fat as Trojan horses to carry cargo, whether it's drug, genes, microRNA, whatever that is. We have cracked the code on how to engineer them to be able to fight brain cancer. And of course, we use it as a platform, because in the future, it will be used to fight many, many other cancers. And in full disclosure, Jordan and I started a company called Dome Therapeutics. I have expanded outside. You know, it's just, my wife says, you just don't have enough to do what you're doing. Why don't you go ahead and start another company? So Jordan and I started this company a couple of years ago, and it's just been miraculous. Now we have 2 human clinical trials going on. You know, but what do you learn from these things? It turns out that life has an interesting way of teaching you lessons. You know, this is one of the early episodes. I was telling Lynn as we were driving here that in 2009, this show came out, Hopkins. It was a documentary, 7 episodes, and I was in the stories. You know, Terry Wrong did the show from ABC, and it was amazing. I tell you what I learned. I watched this episode. I watched all my colleagues, and I wanted to keep one single story, one single message that would allow me to somehow learn something from these experiences, because once again, it's very easy to believe that we are much better than what we are, and suddenly our heads begin to expand. But when I watched the whole series, 7 episodes, I left, you know, and I would remember thinking, you know, that there was something, you know, about being in the operating room, about taking care of patients in this case. You know, Nick, I think this thing ran out of batteries. You know, this is what I'm beginning to realize, because it's not working anymore. You know, but if you advance me, that'll be great, you know. So I apologize, everybody. So if we can go to the next slide, you know, I learned from this experience that in the operating room, we can go back, you know. Thank you. Let me see. There you go, right there. Perfect. Thank you. That in the operating room, there's no space, there's no room to carry that chip in your shoulder. It's extra weight. It's that ego. I always tell my team, we work as a team. All right, in the operating room, we work as a team. And every single element, from the person who cleans the floor, which by the way, sometimes it's me cleaning the floor because I got to help move things along in the operating room, to the person who is doing the surgery, to the anesthesiologist, the neuropathologist, the neurocritical care, the neurologist who is looking at the electrophysiology. Every single piece matters in the operating room. And then, of course, this last year, yesterday I spent the day with the students and we watched the show. I tell you from this, you know, what I learned was very, very simple. You know, that the healing of a patient doesn't start at the moment of surgery. I watched all the, by the way, yesterday was the very first time that I watched the entire episode with the students here, because I don't know, the cinematography, it made me look too good. I'm not gonna lie to you. There was a lot of Photoshop. And that I always tease Lucy Blackstad. They do the slow motion, they do all this kind of stuff. But I watched the other 3 that were amazing, and I realized that healing begins way before. In my case, it begins way before I touch the patient. It begins in the clinic, the moment I hear about it. Continues in the operating room, and it goes beyond that. And that healing process, it allows me to connect with my patients. And life has an interesting way of keeping you humble. I'm going to go back to the story with my son, David. So my son, David, finds out that this thing is going to happen. So they announced this in 2016, you know, and they put this on the news, and he loves movies, and he comes to me. He says, Dad, he's only like maybe about 14 around this time. I hear they're going to make a movie about you. I say, yeah. And he's got a wicked sense of humor, you know, very sarcastic. And of course, you know, first of all, I'm only 5'7" with cowboy boots. I'm probably born like 5'5", and my wife is about 5'9". So my kids, they always joke around. They say that I am not short. They say that I am fun size. All right. So let me just. So they said, Dad, you're not sure you're fun size. All right. So this is the discussion that we had when they were little, and they were arguing, and David and Olivia arguing that I'm short. And my oldest daughter, she's about 11, says, guys, Daddy's not short. He's fun size. So that's how the whole thing started. So David finds this out. He says, Dad, who's going to play your role? And here comes 3. I said, this is the moment. My son is going to find out that his own man is someone important. So mistake number 1. And I said, It's going to be someone tall, line number 1, handsome, line number 2, and muscular, line number 3. And I said, they're thinking about Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. My son did exactly that. And then says, Daddy, it's going to be Danny DeVito. I met Danny DeVito. He's about this big. But this is the way, you know what I mean? But I always think about this. Life has a way of, of making you feel, bring you back in terra firma. And it's always, and I learned this, from a quote that I also got from one of my students. Everybody is a genius. We all have an amazing ability to dream. We have brains that are unbelievable. But if you do, if you put a fish, if you judge a fish by its ability to climb a tree, you're always going to believe that that fish is stupid, of course. So if you have a dream, I tell the students, chase it, dream it, don't let it go. It is much, much more dangerous and much more challenging to imagine light when the rest of the world only sees darkness. And I think about this. I think, what is darkness? Is it really the absence of light? It's a philosophical question. I believe that darkness, true darkness, is not the absence of light. It's the absence of imagination. Because your brain can see light even if there's no light stimulating your brain. If you allow those neurons to fire, if you allow those synapses to connect, you will do that. This is another picture. We couldn't crack the code and how these cells were migrating. This is an experiment that we did around 2017. And those are cells that are now in different colors because the cells don't move. These are human cells in human brain. The cells don't move in just one direction. They're moving in 4 directions, in 4 dimensions. And I couldn't crack the code. I had gone to physicists. I had gone to Johns Hopkins Applied Physics Laboratory. And finally, I came across a young man who was just leaving one of the Hollywood companies to come to work at the NIH. And his specialty, he had been involved in some of those new movies where you have to make, Monsters, Inc. was one of the movies that he had done. And they had to figure out how to move the hair in all these directions in 3D, 4D, and all that kind of stuff. So he ended up figuring out the vectors and the way to crack the code. And it was his imagination that allowed us to now understand how these, things move. And it was also the imagination that we had, when I was in Philadelphia, 2010, which, by the way, I'm about to go to the same meeting in 2 weeks from now. I was sitting in this meeting, and one of my mentors, who at that point I thought he was a tormentor, he's telling me, he goes to Alfredo, he goes, I know you're going to all these places and you're doing all these things, but you got to go beyond that. You're not doing enough. And I said, Mike, what are you talking about? I got a lab, I got so many scientists, I'm doing this and that. And at the time I was climbing the ladder, I was becoming a full professor in less than 5 years at Johns Hopkins, and I was so proud of myself, And he goes, no, you have the ability to do more than that. You have the ability to touch the world through the work. If you just put your mind into going back to those places, I'd be delighted to go with you. Mike Lawton, he's the co-founder of Mission Brain, to build bridges around the world. So I cannot take the credit. I had already been going around the world and doing teaching, but I wasn't touching the patients yet. I was touching the students. And he figured out that if we touched the patients, we had the ability to not only touch the patient, but the students, the doctors, the community. And that's exactly how Mission Brain began. We began to go around the world, and I am going to, these are some of the pictures that you can see. We have done by now over 120, some of the most, we don't do simple surgery. We do the most complex brain surgery. This is the only place in the world where you see 4 or 5 of us who are considered to be in the lead of this club of brain surgeons in the United States, operating together on behalf of a patient that has no possibility of ever being able to get the care in the United States. But we all deserve that care. So I'm going to show you a video. You're going to see in the video, you're going to hear Mike Lawton talking, you're going to hear George Jallo talking, you're going to see patients, you're going to see us running around the hospital. Those are the true unsung heroes. So I'm about to play this movie for you. It's about a minute and 30 seconds. So here we go. Let's see, Nick, if it's going to play, all right? Let's take it away. Let's see. The disease that we care for in brain surgery is a complex disease. A lot of the cases that we do are incredibly complex, and that's what sets apart this mission from any other mission in the world. We are not here to tell people how to do surgery. We're here to share our knowledge and to learn from them.
Most importantly, I think the organization is such that you bring 3 neurosurgeons that are skilled in all of neurosurgery. You bring a cerebrovascular neurosurgeon, you bring a tumor or neuro-oncology surgeon, and a pediatric neurosurgeon.
That's why I think it's of value, is if we can connect with a couple of neurosurgeons in these critical places and give them the confidence to keep doing the tough cases, then I think their payback to their society, their culture will be huge.
The chemistry, I think that this is like a dance, and you have to learn how to trust your partner. And I trust them, they trust me, we trust each other, and that's why when we are in the operating room, the impact that it has not only in their knowledge, but also in their ability to do things for other patients with the things we donate to them is multiplied tenfold, in my opinion, and they do miracles. Never in a million years had I imagined that something as simple as a journey to go back to places where I grew up was going to lead to what the foundation is today. These are the countries where there are over 44 chapters that have been formed by young doctors, young physicians, and the goal actually that all of them have themselves set up is to have 100 chapters formed in over 25 countries by the end of 2022. What did I tell you at the beginning? I'm just a synapse. I'm connecting neurons around the world. I planted a small little seed, and now they're taking it to the next level. This is the last hackathon that we just actually did with Harvard, MIT, and Boston just a couple of weeks ago. I didn't even know what a hackathon was, guys. I mean, if I tell you, you're going to think, are you guys doing something illegal? That's what I thought. We're going to do something illegal. It turns out that this is a place where you bring engineers, scientists to hack their minds, to come up with ideas, and we presented. The students at Harvard put it together with the students from all over the world. They showed 2 cases, real cases, and they show what happened before, during, and after, and where are the places where you can make it better, not only for technology to be able to care for the patient in the operating room. I love what I do as a brain surgeon. But did you guys know that one of my operating rooms is a $12 million operating room? How can you do this in the rest of the world? It's impossible. So we have to create technology that will make my work available to the rest of the world, because that's the world in which we are living. We are beginning to evolve, in the way we're thinking about it. So they brought people from all over the world, and they believe in this philosophy. Your attitude, not your aptitude, will determine how high you reach your goals. That means your altitude. And I think that that's something that they truly embody in that hackathon that just happened a few weeks ago. I tell them, and I share with the young people right here, being good at something also means being bad. And in my case, I'm still not good at finding a cure for brain cancer. I'm trying to get good at giving my patients hope, which is important for me, But it is important to understand what are the opportunities that you have in life. How do you think of yourself? How do you see yourself? I learned this from another one of my students. Reputation is important. This is what the world thinks of you. But character is where you think of yourself, how you see yourself. And this is something that is truly, truly important in our lives, And always being grateful. I told you I was going to end up with a picture. These are all the people that moved from Baltimore. So we took this picture around February of 2017. We've been there for about 5 months. They all picked up everything because we all believed in one dream, that we were going to find a cure for brain cancer. I realized that maybe what we've been doing is giving our patients' hope. And for that, we've been extraordinarily thankful. So having that attitude of gratitude is crucial in life. So I thank you, everybody, for allowing me to be here. I thank the leadership, I thank the faculty, I thank the students for allowing me to be part of all of you and for allowing me to be in this amazing, amazing place. You guys are so blessed to have so many people to care for you. I see you nodding right there. You know, it's amazing what they are doing for you, bringing a lot of leaders from around the world. I saw the list of distinguished people. It's truly, truly humbling for me to be, you know, among those who have received this award. So I thank you from the bottom of my heart, and I look forward to spending a few more hours with you before I head back to tonight and then to the operating room tomorrow. So my last, thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. I'll post this later.
Right there.
Yes, Mr. President.
I said earlier that I was confident that we would find inspiration in Dr. Q's words this morning. I was right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Just amazing. I'm also struck by something else, Dr. Q, and you've made this possible by being here today, gathering our community together today, spending the better part of the year with us virtually, with our students, with our faculty, with all of us.
Thank you.
And it occurs to me today in this setting and your presentation, this is Austin College at its best. And I'm just struck by it. I'm moved by it. This is a very special day, and I'm just an honor for us to have you here to make it so. So thank you again.
Thank you.
And we have a little business to take care of. So please join me, everyone, in welcoming David Corrigan up to the podium. David is our chair of the Board of Trustees at Austin College.
Thank you.
David, I'm going to ask you to help me present this award to Dr. Q. Dr. Q, as our first Posey Leadership Award Leader in Residence, you've had a great impact on our students. You've had a great impact on our entire community. Something I often say is that we try to transform students so they will transform the world. I have no doubt that the conversations that you've had with our students this past year will have a lasting impact both on them, on our campus, and through them in the communities and the professions that they choose, and in ways that we can only imagine. It's been a privilege to have you part of our Austin College community. We appreciate all your contributions, not the least of which is the pocket squares for you today, my friend. And there are a few other pocket squares in the audience that is in honor of you.
Thank you.
Okay, I want you to know that. I'm also so proud that you've learned the Austin College Roo symbol. And that you are part of Roo Nation. And just to reinforce that, we have a little something for you.
Let me put this down. If
Yes.
you... That way I can do my selfies.
This has been truly remarkable, Dr. Q, and on behalf of the entire Austin College Nation, thank you. I couldn't agree more with what you've done and how you've impacted lives and how you've changed the kids' lives here. It's been remarkable, and I know that everybody in this room truly appreciates it. So thanks again. We are pleased to add your name to an elite list of servant leaders who have received this award. On behalf of the Board of Trustees of Austin College, President O'Day and I are deeply honored to present you the 2022 Austin College Posey Leadership Award, represented by this beautiful medallion. Thank you.
So clearly you saw my script that said, how about one more round of applause for Dr. Q? Again, I want to thank all of you for being here, for being part of this very special event. You talked about breaking or cracking the code, and there was work to be done. As far as the Posey Leadership Award and the Leader in Residence, I believe we have cracked that code in really capturing, I think, the intent behind this entire award and all that we do. So I want to thank you again personally for making that possible. Very special day. We hope folks are going to stick around. We have some lunch and all of that stuff following. We're going to make a quick beeline out of here because I think we are wanted by some folks for some interviews and whatnot. So we're going to get a little bit of a head start on you on that. We're going to step out. I'm going to ask Dr. Dryberg to come up, take care of any final business that we have. Thank you again for being here, everyone.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, at this time, I'd like to ask all of the students who are scheduled to be in a photo opportunity with Dr. Q to very quietly start making their way outside to the north side of the administration building. That includes the leadership students, the Posey Leadership Award, the PLI fellows, and the student interns to head out, either here or there. And we'll see you on the north side of the admin building. Just finally, ladies and gentlemen, for many of you who know how this award is put together each year, you know that we have that this is put together by a generous gift that was endowed by Sally and Lee Posey, and you too can play an important part in the selection for next year's winner. Nominations are now open for the 2023 Austin College Posey Leadership Award. We don't take breaks here. We are actively working on next year's award. If you know of an inspiring leader who would be an excellent leader in residence for us next year, please feel free to go online and nominate them. For the next few days, there will be a link on the homepage of the Austin College homepage website that will take you to our nomination form. Thank you all for being here for this very special occasion, and we are adjourned.